Hey, it's Kaylee. You know me as the Parts Girl, and I work here at PartsEdge. Thanks for following this awesome journey as we highlight thought leaders and trailblazers, share best practices in fixed ops, and cover success stories of how dealers sell more parts and service. This is the PartsEdge podcast with Kaylee Felio.
So the question is,
What
you
did I
ask, what are we seeing? What's broken, fixed today? Well,
Yeah.
let me start with that question. That is a great question, not just by Kaylee, but it is a great question to ask as a leader. And I'll tell you why. Anybody I've studied that's ever created any positive change that lasts, they start with that question. What's broke? Everybody can use those two words. What's broke? Ron Wolf, when he was hired by the Green Bay Packers in 1991, had a big decision to make. They had Lindy Infante at head coach. They had Don Majkowski at quarterback. He sees him go play Atlanta. They lose a close game. He's trying to decide, and he gets in the locker room the next day, Monday, and he said you couldn't tell whether they had won or lost. And he had a problem with that. He said losing should hurt. So he got his answer. He went and made a deal for Brett Favre. You know how that story turned out. And then
No, but I don't know.
Brett Favre's in the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
Within 5 years, they're winning their first Super Bowl.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah.
I mean,
I will share that I'm I'm not a very good football person. My husband likes football and he'll rewind plays to show me and I'm like, cool.
you're just like, I don't care
about it. I'm not going to fake it. I don't like.
I love it. That's okay. Well, then that just makes me go a little further because you're probably not the only one watching this that is going to say that.
Yeah,
But
maybe.
my point is, he started with what's broke.
Yeah.
And I met Ron Wolf. I've been in Green Bay at business camps. I've talked to these people. Not only this, I'm sitting on a chair behind me. You're sitting on a chair. The largest privately held office furniture supply company in the world is Miller Furniture. Herman Miller is famous for the chairs they make. Herman Miller, in his book, literally chapter 1 is define what's broke. After the Packers in 96 went to the Super Bowl, in 97 went back to the Super Bowl again, they lose to John Elway and the Broncos.
I do know who that is.
Yep. He writes a book, his first chapter, define what's broke. They both understood this concept. So in fixed, you have to define what's broke. One of the problems, and I'm answering the question one layer at a time, if you can feel it. Okay.
Yes, I can feel it. You're building the story.
Yeah, because I don't want to just give you the answer because it's too abstract.
It is. It really is. And I think it's overwhelming too.
It is. But if you make the adjustment in what we're doing right now, you'll be able to go begin to ingest it and interpret your own environment and begin to assess on your own. And now all of a sudden, you're operating with a level of wisdom that is a little bit different because you've slowed down enough to be able to go fast. See, you've identified malpractice. Malpractice is the result of prescription without diagnosis. And so, it's an old axiom and it's very simple. Like even in business, what's broke? Well, what are the expectations? Peter Drucker wrote a great book called The 5 Essential Questions Every Business Must Answer. The very first question is, what is our mission? Question number 2 is, who is our customer? Question 3 is, what is our customer value? Question 4 is, how are we doing? And question 5 is, what is our plan? Kaylee, I could do a day seminar on those 5. And I want to tell you something. You know where 90% of businesses start? They skip the first 4 and they start with, what's our plan? Bro, how do you know what your plan is? You said, well, John, what's a mission? A mission is not what, it's why. So like Ed Roberts, who you and I know and love.
Yes.
When I asked Ed, I said, Ed, what's the mission at Beaux-Arts? And he's like, to enhance the lives of others. He didn't even pause. So Ed, why do you have the Technician Training Institute? He goes, technician shortage shouldn't be a problem. If we have the ability to identify the right type person for the role, we should be able to educate and develop them and grow them. Because I want to enhance their life. Ed, why do you have 50 mobile vans all over the road? John, because I want to enhance the customer's life because some of them don't have the time or the desire to sit in our service department. So we just figured with 80% of our ROs being maintenance anyway, we'll just come to you. See, when you get your mission right, listen to me. When you get your mission right, you have an unfair advantage. And I also want to say this, it's not always as easy as just talking about it. You're
I was
looking
just
at
gonna
a guy who's
say, you're making it seem so easy. Like it makes sense because obviously I know him, and some people listening may know of Ed, but like you make it sound so easy. So maybe if you could provide, because I know you guys have a solid mission too. What are some of the things that really help you get there? And is it okay to not get there in one day?
it
And
is
is it
okay
okay
to
to
not.
change?
Yes, you want to ring this out. Once you get the mission right, though, those other four questions, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, you have an unfair advantage. I don't care what space you're in. We're talking automotive
Perhaps you
fix.
could do it and fix too. Like, what's your mission? And fixed.
The rule is it needs to fit on a t-shirt. So it can't be War and Peace, Dances with Wolves, here's 22 pages. What are, no, 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 no.
You're
It
right.
fits
It
on a
does need to
t-shirt.
fit on a t-shirt
Does that
because
make
those,
sense?
it totally makes sense because the other thing, if you think about what this industry is doing and the awesome humans out there that are creating brands and creating this influence, their stuff fits on a t-shirt and it's an awesome mission that people want to be part of.
You
So,
remember when you were growing up, there was a t-shirt that had an apple that had a bite out of it, and it said two
mhm.
words, think different. What
Oh, was
company?
that Apple? Yeah, Apple.
So what were they saying? That was their mission.
Mhm.
Why? Because why? They didn't say iPhones.
But
It didn't
yeah,
say
or computers.
iPads. It didn't
Yeah,
say MacBook.
think
It said
different.
think different. Why? Why do we exist? Because we want to think different. What was different for Apple? I'll tell you what it was. They thought of the end user.
Yes. How
They
it can
thought,
improve
how do
their
we
life.
simplify this?
Yes.
We look at an iPhone and we say, okay, if you crack this thing open and look behind it, you and our eyes are going to roll in the back of our head. We don't, diodes and wiring, circuit
You
boards,
don't
we
want
don't
to
even
know
know what we're
about
looking
that.
at. When
Yeah.
we touch this thing and it looks at us and we can make magic with this thing because
Yeah.
they've simplified it. So at Traver Connect, the mission is experience matters. Now, we start with just two words and then we say theirs, yours, ours. Who's theirs? Theirs is the consumer. Their experience matters. There's not a single dealer client or commercial client that we have that says, well, that's not they all like, absolutely. Okay, good. So what we're trying to do is create systems, solutions, tools, interactions that make that experience more pleasurable because we know that if we can make that experience positive, remove the friction, we know they're more likely not only to go through, but to repeat the cycle. So
Yeah.
we start with theirs. Yours is our clients. So what we're trying to do is listen to their needs, take on tasks or develop tools or systems that simplify things that have to be done and do it as well as them or better for less. So if we're going into a store that maybe has a BDC, we might not do anything except for add some software, add learning and development, begin to provide guidance at key mile markers. We might just augment what they already got. There are others that, they're like, we don't have time and space and energy to, can you just do it? We can do that. So
Yeah.
there's all different ways
Not the
to
one size.
develop the business. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the theirs. And then ours, by the way, we have we have a we have a 7-digit payroll just for software developers here annually. So yes. So I mean, we write our own tools. We develop systems and platforms and integrations and so forth. And so those people are uber talented, but they're not just talented at code. They have a sense for the use case. They understand the plight of the user. So ours is our incredible team of people that are bent towards making a difference with this mission. So, okay, so let me confess to you, Traver is almost 15 years old, Traver Connect. And we've only had that mission for about 4 years. So
That's
it took
reassuring.
it took time. It took time. But once it clicks and you see it, now, were we working on those things? Yes,
Yeah.
we were on day one. but it didn't. So in other words, don't jump off the ship if you don't have yours right away. But now today, when we create stuff, like we have a Gen 3 data product coming out for basically retention and loyalty that does all kinds of things with data using AI, but ultimately it ends up using humans to schedule, repeat, and recurring loyalty service business, bringing them in for their next visit. And it's layered. It's pretty deep. How do we get to that with that same mission? So it's like we don't sit here and go, gosh, what product, what tchotchke can we create? It's not like that. It's we stay in our lane. And so that's the beauty of mission. The second thing I would say is who's our customer? Everybody goes, duh. Well, let me show you something. Every business has two customers. They have a primary and a secondary. And this is another Druckerism, and it's absolutely true. Let's say you and I were talking about our kids early on before we got this started.
Yeah.
So let's say you are an elementary school principal. And if I were to ask you, I say, Kaylee, who's your primary customer? You could say the parents. You could say the teachers.
Oh,
Well, teachers, not, you could say the teachers.
Yeah.
You could say the school board. But you know what? You know who your primary customer is?
The students. Yeah.
That's for whom we have gathered. That's the primary. And every business only has one primary. So what you just realized is, wait a minute. So secondary, does secondary mean they're not important? Actually, the opposite. In every business, secondary customers can get you fired.
What do you mean? Like,
Could the school board cut you loose as
oh, yeah.
principal? Could
Yes.
your teachers turn against you?
True. Yeah.
Could they just leave you?
Hmm.
Okay, so in automotive, what are some of the secondary customers? You got the OEM, you got
Hmm.
other vendor partners, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Suppliers. So what you have is this balancing act. So the reason you have a mission is you want to line up those secondaries to where it's feeding that primary. I'm having to do this in a very short period of time because normally I'm going to spend a little more time on it, but that's
That's
the
okay. You're
question
doing
too.
great. Yeah.
So now you know who the customer is, and then you go, okay, now let's ask, what do they value? So if it's 1980 and we say, what do they value? You're going to get a particular answer, but it's not 1980, it's 2025. Let me
Yeah.
ask you this. You've been in this space for a long enough time to know that you've seen what's important to the consumer has evolved. True or false?
True. Absolutely true.
Okay,
Yes.
so then here's my question for you in the audience. How important is it to continue to ask question number 3? What's important to the consumer? It's very important because you could be like my story before. You're dealing with grandma's ham. You're dealing with the old information. Hey, you got to, but that requires somebody who actually has a set of ears, and your ears are connected right here. Like, right here.
And I think
Sometimes
it's
you hear the answer and you're not listening. Fire away.
absolutely. Yeah. And I think going back to just finding out what is broken, I think by something there's psychological with that. I'm not like I didn't study all of that, but like I do think there is something with that word, and you don't want to go there because you don't want to feel like something's broken. You just everything's working fine, but in reality it really isn't. And not in a bad way though. Like I think that's the thing that I'm trying to point out.
There's a guy that
Oh,
wrote a book, Ryan, I think I'm trying to remember his last name, Ryan, but it's called The Obstacle is the Way. And so
yeah.
you're sort of talking about the obstacle right now. And
Yeah.
that's a book worth reading. I don't subscribe to every single part of the book, but the theme and the core message is really good. And that is, to your point, we tend to avoid like, oh, it's the way. Like, by just listening and really hearing, and I'll show you, the best listeners never respond. They always ask another question or 3.
Yep.
Kaylee, how long has it been like that? Kaylee, if you got rid of that problem, what would things look like? Kaylee, who else knows? Kaylee,
If I
what's
do
this
that,
costing the business every
I
year?
overwhelm people with questions.
Yeah, but my old controller, who I had at Traver Technologies before I sold to ADP in 2000, and that's where that business ended up going. Um, she would always say, JT, She was super Southern. JT, I always ask why too many times, I know, but I got to ask you why. And I said, Carolyn, I have no problem with why because it says you care. So you can ask me why as many times as you want. I'm going to answer you. So
Yeah.
why is not a problem. Now if I got to answer the same question over and over and over, then I'm going to
That
probably take you to the doctor, okay, get you checked up. So, um, but the idea behind knowing who your customers and knowing what they value, now you can start to pinpoint how to prioritize based on what you're finding that's broke in fixed, what to work on next. So, you know, for some stores, if you call, whether it's AI or live, you have to wait 3 or more weeks to get in for a service appointment. So that's a great problem for somebody stretching their suspenders going, yep, we're booked for the next 3. But for that person calling, they're going to call one of the 161,000 independents
yeah.
and they're going to go there. And you have lost that customer, not just this time, but probably forever.
I have a question, and this is kind of on the same subject. I'm just thinking about it. What's your perspective on how we schedule? Like, I guess my question is how I'm trying to think of how I want to ask this question. I feel like it's so difficult to schedule an appointment. And I feel like there's ways to, I don't want to call a dealership to schedule an appointment. Like, I don't understand why we do that. It's probably my generation that
Huh?
I'm saying that, but I really just want it to just be so routine and not have to think about it.
What
So
would be ideal? What would be the ideal way for you to set an appointment? First of all, do you know when you need to set it, or does somebody need to let you know electronically that it's time to set it? What would be better?
someone needs to let me know, because if I take off my knowledge of understanding my vehicle hat because I'm in the industry and I'm taking that off, I need someone to tell me that this is coming up. This is the potential to maintain your vehicle and how much you're going to have to like budget for. And yeah, I just think it's like so broken in the way it's like how we have to call and they don't know anything about me. So
Correct. Correct. So if you got that notification, would it be, do you have a preferred channel? Would it be email? Would it be text? Something else? Carrier
I would
pigeon?
say actually email, because
Okay.
text can get lost. I think because I'm a read and forget kind of, because I don't like notifications.
That's why
But
you're not answering my text messages when we're trying to find. Oh, just kidding. My
no, but
daughter, my
email is like
daughter
a
does this.
list. Your father does
Yes.
that?
Yeah, my daughter, yes,
Or your
it's
daughter?
like selective. She's good with me, but I mean, I'll hear her brothers and stuff. Hey, answer the
I have to
text.
like remember to unread it, and I'm like, oh, I'll get to that later.
Yes,
Yeah.
that too. Okay, so the answer,
Anyway,
okay, so you're answering for those that are in fixed that are listening to this, you're hearing a statement of work be developed by Kaylee, and she's basically saying, send me an email, give me a template of what I'm looking at spending. Kaylee, would it be helpful to you in that email if it also told you it's $300 and you can also finance that for 0% for 6 months? Would
hmm,
that be helpful to you?
that would be great. Yes.
Okay. And then as far as like drop off, loaner or
Pick
pickup and
up.
delivery, would any of those services be important to know at that point?
Oh yeah, give me those options. The other thing we're missing too is when we're talking about what to look like, the maintenance items or whatnot, um, telling me why I need to do that and what could happen if I don't do that. Because if I'm a
Yes.
regular person and don't really know what certain things are in my car, I should probably know that.
Yeah. So like information button highlight or a
Yeah,
description off to the side. Yes.
yeah.
Yes. The benefit. Okay.
Mhm.
So what you're sensing, what happens is as these calls and inquiries come in, um, shortage of technicians is a problem for some. Now, Ed Roberts will tell you there is no technician shortage, but that's because Ed got ahead, right? And he said, look, let's have a vision for this. He also knows that space because he has done that work. He
Yeah.
has an intimate knowledge of that space and he has parlayed it in such a wonderful way. that a lot of people are benefiting. I just want to say something about Bozard that's so fascinating that some people miss. I don't know if everybody realizes, but that Ford and Lincoln Mercury store, both of them have their own unique story. That they're in the Mecca, the metropolis of St. Augustine, Florida. Y'all, that is not a metropolis. Okay? Like probably the biggest thing going there is Bozard. I mean, and
Got
I'm
it.
not
Okay.
throwing shade at anybody. I'm
No.
saying what they have accomplished as the seventh largest, whatever their current rank is, Ford store in the United States out of St. Augustine should scream.
They've created a destination. People,
Some,
yeah,
something special is happening. And
yes.
it's happened from this kind of thinking. And then this thinking became action. And then people are like, how'd you build that wall? And the answer is one brick at a time, one day at a time. But we just never take a day off. We just keep laying brick. And so it's just good principles. And most of what I'm talking to you about, I see um, happening in folks that are making progress in this space. They understand the fundamentals and they're working on it. They're not just talking about it.
That's, I mean, it's incredible to see. I just always go back to that just because I'm like, how come we haven't completely solved that? How have we not, how is it so difficult and other industries have completely figured it out? Why can't we figure this out? But I know that we're not going to figure it out in this conversation, but
That's okay. I just want to say something though. It's a rhetorical statement you just made, but I want to ask you something. If they were saying, what is our mission? Who's our customer? And what is our customer value? Wouldn't they know that it's a problem?
yeah, they
Okay, and
would.
if they knew it was a problem, would they know how big of a problem it is? If it's representing revenue for, yes. So then the answer to your question is because they're not asking those three questions.
Not enough people are asking those three questions.
Correct.
Yes.
On the regular, five questions every business must ask. And by the way, not once in your life, over and over and over again. The
That's
other
the
thing is this, when they ask it, how they respond to it matters. That fourth question is, how are we doing? And so
yeah.
that's the difference between people that are like, look, if you've ever dealt with somebody who's going through something really rough and they're the problem, there's two different possible responses. Either you're right or denial,
Denial.
one of the
Yep.
two.
Hmm.
And so to me, the most dangerous competitors in the world, Kaylee, are the ones who quickly get to, you're right, we can do better.
Yeah.
Like those are the people I pray I don't ever have to compete against on a regular basis because there is no day off. Like those guys will just keep getting better. That's who you want to be. That's the group. Just assume there's something broke and put it in its proper order and get after it. Watch what happens.
I love that. I think that's kind of a good way to kind of wrap this up because I feel pumped and I feel like I also don't feel crazy now. Like sometimes I go through phases of my life and not life or just like what I'm doing and I feel a little crazy because I'm like trying to constantly get better and I'm like feeling like there's something wrong, but it's not like anything's wrong. It's just that you just it's okay to constantly want to be better and it's exciting. I think if you can fuel it with excitement rather than like it's draining to, because I go through that. I'm like, well, it was okay before or whatnot. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'm kind of
Does.
going through that right now. I'm looking at process and I'm constantly looking at process because I'm like, how can I make this better? Because I'm a one person like team. Like, what can I do to make this better? So,
Do you
anyways,
want to comment on, do you want me to give you a comment on process if you're working on that?
yes, please give me comment on it.
Okay, so the best version of this you can find, it's called Core Process and it's part of EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. You read the book Traction. In the book Traction, they'll talk about EOS, and EOS has 6 or 8
Have that
systems
book
in every
traction.
business. Good. Okay. So in that book, so reading it will help.
Mhm.
And then when you get in there, it's going to refer to another book called Core Processes. Here's the deal. In service, you have half a dozen core processes. I say half a dozen, it may be five, maybe nine, but it's not 92. It's not, there are 92, but they're not core.
core. Yes,
Like
that's the point.
you have a heart, you have a brain, you have lungs, but you have other things in between that you
That
can
makes
kind of limp along in life
yeah,
without them being optimal, if that makes sense.
that totally
Okay.
makes sense. Yep.
Okay, but how, okay, where the business today is coming from. That's your business development process. How do you load the shop, right? Okay. Um, how do we check and receive a customer? How do we assess the vehicle and open the ticket? Do we have parts on hand? Do you know anything about parts? Do we
A little bit.
do we have parts on hand for the most popular, most likely to be needed? Okay, because if not, are we affecting? So there's when we close out, when we follow up. So there's a half a dozen core processes. So in parts, there's half a dozen core processes, plus or minus.
Yep.
Now, when you document core processes, if there's 100 steps, you only want to document 20%. They're all one pagers. So it's the 20% that gets you 80% of the way there. Make sure you greet them properly. Not make sure you're at this point in the drive within this, it's just make sure you greet them properly. Boom, summed up. So once you have this, now you have a playbook. Players, you're recruiting players. You know what team they want to play on? Winning teams.
Winning teams, yes.
And you know how they know it's a winning team? Show me your playbook. So when I know that you have a playbook, okay, so now your core process journey becomes very defined. And it's like, look, this isn't everything. Number 3, FBA, followed by all. So this is how we check somebody in. This is how we do inventory of parts once a month, like whatever. Okay. And then I can say to you, Kaylee, that's our process. Why aren't you following it? Then you get the person that says, well, what about creativity? Elon Musk jumps in here and he says, John, why can't I say, hold on, time out? Because you did this when you created Tesla. You had a process. Don't tell me you had a process. And what you did is you handed it off to somebody and they're repeating the process. So what you can do is once you have the 20% that takes you 80% of the way there, I can say, Kaylee, follow the process and make it better. See, I just turned you loose because now you understand the direction, which is our mission. You understand who we're trying to benefit, which is the customer, and you are free. The handcuffs are off. Go, sister. Improve on it.
Yeah.
John, one of the things I love to do is I love to also do this. So do you see what just happened for you?
Yeah.
And your ability to repeat, your ability to recruit, you have an unfair advantage. So that's the answer to that. That's what you want to do next to be able to move closer to that, make that every day for your organization.
Yeah, that was powerful. I feel like I just had therapy, business therapy. Every time, sometimes I do that on interviews. I'm like, man, I feel like this is like a therapy session for me. But like,
I love it. I love it. I love it.
I love talking to you. I could probably talk to you for another hour and ask you more questions, but for the sake of it being a podcast, is there anything that you want to add to wrap up as we close out this awesome conversation?
Yeah, I would just say, emphasize, be teachable, be hungry, ask for help around you, manage the circle of people that you're surrounded with. The opportunities are many. You're on rich soil in fixed ops. I mean, no matter how far you are, there's more. And they need us. They need us to be great. So let's keep going.
Perfect wrap up. Thank you so much, John, for joining the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for asking me.